I swear to all 7 moons of Proxima Centauri, if you tell me humans are just clever monkeys one more time, I will personally ensure your next molt is excruciating. Admiral Zexthar growled, his mandibles clicking in irritation. The iridescent carapace of his thorax shimmered under the council chamber's lights as he leaned forward, compound eyes fixed on Ambassador Vrelnak. The Phidian ambassador fluttered his gill membranes dismissively. Please, Admiral, your fascination with these bipeds is clouding your judgment. They've barely mastered interstellar travel. Their vessels are laughably primitive. Just last cycle, one of their ships had to be rescued because they miscalculated a gravitational slingshot around Betelgeuse. That was a civilian science vessel, corrected Admiral Zexthar. And need I remind you they solved the Coranthi paradox while waiting for rescue? Something our greatest minds have been puzzling over for millennia? Lieutenant Commander Ethan Reed tried not to smirk as he stood at parade rest behind the Galactic Council's observation barrier. These Xenos had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. As Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Council, Reed had spent the last 3 standard years listening to similar debates. The Council consistently underestimated humans, which was exactly how Earth's defense force wanted it. Ambassador Vrelnak's skin flushed a patronizing shade of mauve. A lucky guess, nothing more. Humans are an amusing curiosity, Admiral, but hardly a species to be taken seriously in matters of galactic security. That amusing curiosity repelled a Crixian assault fleet with nothing but retrofitted mining vessels and obsolete satellites. Zexthar countered, antennae twitching in agitation. Reed maintained his stoic expression, though internally he was amused. The Crixian assault had been 12 scout ships on a routine border patrol. The EDF had deployed exactly 2 corvettes armed with nothing more than point defense lasers and a lot of bluffing. The rest was pure human theatrics. Old communications satellites reprogrammed to emit false energy signatures, mining drones modified to project holographic weapons systems, and a whole lot of bravado over open comms. Grand Chancellor Unra, the ancient Telfuri who headed the council, raised a gnarled appendage for silence. The chamber immediately quieted. No one dared interrupt when the millennia-old being chose to speak. Perhaps, the Grand Chancellor's voice reverberated, we should hear from our human representative before passing judgment. Every eye, ocular cluster, and sensory organ in the chamber swiveled toward Reed. Showtime. Reed stepped forward, clearing his throat with practiced military precision. Grand Chancellor, honored members of the Council, on behalf of Earth and her colonies, I thank you for your concern regarding our defensive capabilities. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled dignitaries. The chamber housed representatives from over 200 species, most of whom viewed humans as the cosmic equivalent of a precocious toddler. Amusing, occasionally clever, but ultimately harmless. While we appreciate Ambassador Vrelnak's assessment of our technological development, I must respectfully point out that humans have a unique approach to survival. Throughout our history, we've relied not on overwhelming force, but on innovation, adaptation, and occasionally, he allowed himself a small smile. Misdirection. Ambassador Vrelnak snorted, a wet, bubbling sound through his gill membranes. Misdirection? Is that what you call your species' tendency to stumble blindly into hostile territories and then beg for rescue? Reed maintained his diplomatic smile. I call it gathering intelligence, Ambassador. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated chatter. Even Admiral Zexthar looked surprised by Reed's candor. Chancellor Unra raised his appendage again. Explain yourself, Lieutenant Commander. Reed nodded. Humans are aware of our perceived status in the galactic community. We've been called clever monkeys, bipedal curiosities, and my personal favorite, unexpectedly resilient meat sacks. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the chamber. We don't discourage these perceptions, Reed continued. In fact, we find them tactically advantageous. While the Council has been debating our worthiness for advanced technology sharing, we've been quietly developing our own solutions to galactic threats. Ambassador Vrelnak's gill membranes flared in disbelief. Preposterous! Your species can barely maintain a stable presence on your own moon. Reed's smile never faltered. Our public presence, Ambassador. There's a difference. The silence that followed was profound. Reed could practically hear the biological and mechanical gears turning in the collective consciousness of the Council. Admiral Zexthar leaned forward, mandibles twitching with interest. Lieutenant Commander, are you suggesting that Earth has been engaging in clandestine military development beyond Council oversight? I'm suggesting, Admiral, that humanity has always prepared for worst-case scenarios. It's in our nature. Before the conversation could continue, emergency klaxons blared throughout the chamber. The massive holographic display at the center of the room flickered to life, showing a tactical readout of the Viserion sector, the outermost territory of Council space. Grand Chancellor Unra's ancient voice cut through the sudden chaos. "Report!" A mechanoid analyst's voice responded, the translation matrix struggling to convey the appropriate level of alarm. Tyraxian warfleet detected entering Council space through the Viserion wormhole. Initial count suggests over 300 capital ships, with support vessels still emerging. The chamber descended into pandemonium. The Tyraxians, a hive-mind species from the neighboring galaxy, had been a theoretical threat for centuries. Their existence was known, but contact had been limited to long-range observations and intercepted communications. No one had expected an invasion force of this magnitude. Reed pressed his comm unit, subtly activating a secure quantum channel back to Earth Command. He whispered a single phrase: Olympus Contingency. Ambassador Vrelnak's voice rose above the chaos. "This is impossible. Our deep space monitoring arrays should have detected their approach weeks ago." Admiral ZX Thar's carapace had paled to a sickly blue. "The Tyraxians must have developed some form of mass cloaking technology. Our border defenses in the Viserion sector are minimal. They'll be overrun within hours." The tactical display updated, showing the Tyraxian fleet's projected path. Their trajectory placed them on a direct course for the Galactic Council's hub worlds, including the station they currently occupied. Chancellor Unra's voice carried an edge that silenced the chamber once more. "The combined fleet is scattered across 17 sectors. Even at maximum FTL, our nearest battle group is 8 days away." The ancient being turned toward Reed. "Lieutenant Commander, I believe Earth is the closest council member with any significant military presence." All eyes turned to Reed again, but this time with desperate hope rather than condescension. Reed straightened his uniform. "Earth stands ready to assist, Chancellor. However, our local defensive fleet consists of only 6 frigates and a destroyer, against 300 Tyraxian capital ships." He let the implications hang in the air. Ambassador Vrelnak's color had drained to a pale ivory. "Then we're doomed. The station's evacuation protocols should be activated immediately." Reed held up a hand. "I didn't say we couldn't help, Ambassador. I merely stated that our local defensive fleet is insufficient." Admiral ZX Thar's compound eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you suggesting, human?" Reed smiled, not the diplomatic smile of earlier, but something predatory. "I'm suggesting that the Council might benefit from those clandestine military developments I mentioned." He tapped his comm unit again. "Commander Reed to Earth Actual. Authorization code, Prometheus awakens. Deploy the Titan fleet to the Viserion sector. Priority Alpha." The response was immediate and broadcast throughout the chamber. "Confirmation required, Commander Reed. Titan fleet deployment will violate Galactic Council Accords Section 47B regarding undisclosed military assets." Reed looked directly at Chancellor Unra. "Chancellor, I need your explicit permission to deploy Earth's reserve forces, for the record." The ancient being didn't hesitate. "Permission granted, Lieutenant Commander. The Council hereby suspends all relevant sections of the Accords for the duration of this crisis." Reed nodded. "Earth Actual, you have confirmation. Deploy all assets. Show them what humanity can do." "Acknowledged. Titan fleet deploying. Ite to Viserion sector, 17 minutes. A stunned murmur swept through the chamber. 17 minutes? Ambassador Vrelnak sputtered. "That's impossible. Even at maximum FTL, the Earth system is over 3 days from here." Reed's expression remained neutral. "Who said our fleet was in the Earth system, Ambassador?" The holographic display flickered again, now showing a new set of signals emerging from what had appeared to be an unremarkable nebula just half a light-year from the Viserion wormhole. The signatures were massive, far larger than any known Council vessel. Admiral ZX Thar leapt to his feet. "What in the 7 hells are those?" Reed stepped closer to the display. "Those, Admiral, are humanity's contribution to galactic security. We call them the Titan fleet." The display zoomed in on one of the vessels, and the chamber collectively gasped. The ship, if it could even be called that, was enormous. Its structure resembled a heavily modified asteroid, but the scale was staggering. Weapon systems bristled from reinforced bunkers across its surface. Massive engines glowed at its rear, propelling the behemoth forward at speeds that should have been impossible for something of its size. That's a planetoid," stammered Ambassador Vrelnak. "You've turned a planetoid into a warship." 7 of them, actually, Reed corrected. "Each approximately 900 kilometers in diameter. We hollowed out and repurposed several captured asteroids from the Kuiper Belt. The project began shortly after our first contact with the Council, when we realized how vulnerable Earth might be to advanced threats." Admiral ZX Thar's mandibles were clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "How did you move them here without detection? How did you build them without our knowledge?" Reed shrugged. You never asked what we were doing with our mining operations in the outer system. You assumed we were just gathering resources for our primitive colonies. As for moving them, well, let's just say our public FTL technology is not our only FTL technology. The tactical display updated again. The Tyraxian fleet had noticed the approaching Titan vessels and was adjusting formation, spreading out rather than continuing their direct course. They're preparing to engage, Admiral Zekasthar observed, professional interest momentarily overriding his shock. Reed nodded. Good. That means they're taking the bait. Bait? Chancellor Unra questioned. The Titans are impressive, Chancellor, but they're not our primary weapon. They're our shield, and our delivery system. As if on cue, the holographic display showed smaller vessels detaching from the Titan ships, hundreds of them, swarming out like angry insects. These are our Hornet-class strike craft, Reed explained. Each carries a tactical payload designed specifically for hive-mind neural networks like the Tyraxians. We've been studying them for years, intercepting their communications, analyzing their technology. We know how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, how they're connected. The council chamber watched in stunned silence as the human strike craft accelerated toward the Tyraxian fleet, moving at speeds that made them nearly invisible on the tactical display. Impact in 30 seconds, reported the mechanoid analyst. Ambassador Vrelnak found his voice again. Even with these impressive vessels, you're still outnumbered. Those strike craft will barely dent their capital ships. Reed's expression was grim. They're not meant to destroy the ships, Ambassador. They're meant to sever the hive mind. The display flashed as the first wave of Hornets reached the Tyraxian fleet. Instead of conventional explosions, pulses of blue energy radiated outward from each point of impact. The energy waves intersected, creating a complex interference pattern that enveloped the entire enemy fleet. Neural disruption field, Reed explained. Designed to isolate each Tyraxian vessel from the collective consciousness. They function as a unified organism. Cut off their communication, and they become disoriented, unable to coordinate. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Tyraxian formation, once precise and threatening, began to dissolve into chaos. Ships collided with one another, weapons fired randomly into space, and several vessels simply stopped moving altogether. A cheer erupted from several council members, but Reed raised a hand. It's not over. The disruption is temporary. Their systems will adapt. Now comes the real fight. The massive Titan vessels had closed the distance to the Tyraxian fleet. Suddenly, sections of their asteroid-like hulls slid open, revealing enormous weapon emplacements. Beams of blindingly bright energy lanced out, each striking a Tyraxian capital ship with surgical precision. Graviton lances, Reed said. They don't destroy the target. They alter its mass, making it so heavy that the ship crushes itself from the inside out. The council watched in awe as Tyraxian vessels imploded one after another, collapsing like empty containers under tremendous pressure. Admiral Zekasthar's voice was barely audible. How long have you had this capability? Reed met the Admiral's compound gaze steadily. Long enough to know we needed it. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in minutes. The Tyraxian fleet, once the greatest threat the Council had ever faced, was reduced to drifting debris and disabled vessels. The Titan ships moved methodically through the wreckage, deploying smaller craft to capture intact Tyraxian ships for study. Chancellor Unra turned to Reed, his ancient eyes unreadable. Lieutenant Commander, I believe you and your superiors have some explaining to do. Reed nodded. Yes, Chancellor. And I believe the Council has some reassessing to do regarding humanity's place in galactic affairs. The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, the clever monkeys, the unexpectedly resilient meat sacks, had just saved the Galactic Council from annihilation with technology that no one had suspected they possessed. Ambassador Vrelnak was the first to speak. How? How did you develop this level of technology without anyone noticing? Reed allowed himself a small smile. We've had some help. Not all species in the Council share the prevailing view of humanity's potential. All eyes turned to Admiral Zekasthar, whose mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. The Arthrosians have been more open-minded about technology sharing, Reed admitted. But most of this was our own work. Humans have a particular talent for weaponizing just about anything, including astronomical bodies that everyone else considered useless. Chancellor Unra's ancient voice carried across the chamber. I believe this emergency session of the Council is adjourned. Lieutenant Commander Reed, please inform your government that a formal delegation from the Council will arrive at Earth within the week to renegotiate our relationship. Reed bowed slightly. Earth looks forward to more open discussions, Chancellor. As the chamber emptied, Ambassador Vrelnak approached Reed, his gill membranes fluttering with what appeared to be genuine contrition. It seems I owe your species an apology, Lieutenant Commander. Reed shook his head. Not at all, Ambassador. Your skepticism served our purposes quite well. It's much easier to build planet-sized warships when everyone thinks you're struggling with basic interstellar navigation. The Ambassador's color shifted to an offended purple. You deliberately portrayed yourselves as incompetent? Not incompetent, Reed corrected. Just selectively capable. It's an old human strategy. Appear weak when you are strong. Admiral ZX Thar joined them, his carapace now a thoughtful shade of green. I suspected you were hiding something human, but nothing of this magnitude. Those vessels must have taken decades to build. Reed's expression gave nothing away. The Titans represent years of careful planning and construction, Admiral. But they're just the beginning. The Admiral's compound eyes widened. Beginning? Reed simply smiled and excused himself, leaving the two council members staring after him in stunned silence. 6 hours later, Reed stood in the secure communications chamber of Earth's embassy on the council station. The quantum-encrypted holographic link to Earth Command showed 5 grim-faced figures, the Joint Chiefs of Earth Defense Force. Operation Scarecrow was a complete success, Reed reported. The Council bought our display completely. The Tyraxian threat has been neutralized, and Earth's position within the Council is about to improve dramatically. Admiral Helena Kowalski, head of the Joint Chiefs, nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Commander. And the Titans performed as expected? Better than expected, Admiral. The psychological impact was exactly what we hoped for. The Council believes we've turned planetoids into warships. This was the beautiful irony that Reed was still savoring. The Titans were indeed impressive, massive asteroid-based platforms with genuine but limited defensive capabilities. Not the planet killers they appeared to be, but substantial enough to register convincingly on sensors and deliver the neural disruption payloads. And they have no idea about our actual defensive capabilities? General Takagi asked, his holographic image flickering slightly. Reed shook his head. None whatsoever, sir. They're still in the dark about the Jupiter Array, the quantum displacement network, and our true manufacturing capabilities. As far as they know, the Titans represent the pinnacle of human military technology. Admiral Kowalski's expression remained serious. Let's keep it that way, Commander. The Council is feeling grateful now, but that won't last forever. The less they know about our real capabilities, the better. Understood, Admiral. Though I suspect maintaining the facade will be more difficult now. The Council is sending a delegation to Earth next week to renegotiate our relationship. General Takagi frowned. They'll want access to the Titan technology. Reed nodded. Almost certainly. I recommend we prepare a convincing tour of the production facilities in the Kuiper Belt. Show them enough to satisfy their curiosity without revealing anything of substance. Agreed, said Admiral Kowalski. We'll have something suitable arranged by the time they arrive. In the meantime, what's the status of the Tyraxian incursion? Contained, Admiral. The Council believes it was an invasion force, as intended. However, our intelligence suggests this may have been more than a random attack. Reed's expression grew serious. Some of the intercepted communications suggest this was a probing force, testing Council defenses for a larger fleet that remains beyond the wormhole. Then we bought ourselves time, but not a solution, observed General Takagi. Reed nodded grimly. No, sir. Based on our projections, if there is a main Tyraxian force, it could arrive within 6 to 8 months. By then, we need to have the Council prepared for a proper defense, or be ready to reveal more of our actual capabilities. Admiral Kowalski nodded grimly. The Titan deception was brilliant, Commander, but it's limited in scope. For a real Tyraxian invasion, we'll need more than impressive displays and misdirection. Perhaps not, Admiral, Reed suggested. The Council has over 200 member species, many with advanced technology that they've been reluctant to share. Now that humanity has proven its worth, we may gain access to innovations that could complement our own developments. A fair point, conceded General Takagi. Sometimes the best weapon is an alliance. Admiral Kowalski seemed to consider this. Very well, Commander. Your new assignment is to leverage this goodwill into genuine technological exchange. Find out what the Council species have been hiding from each other, and from us. Yes, Admiral. There's one more thing you should know. Reed hesitated, choosing his words carefully. During the engagement, I detected anomalous energy signatures from several Council representatives' communication devices. They were actively scanning our Titans during the battle. The Joint Chiefs exchanged concerned glances. We're not the only ones playing the misdirection game, Reed continued. I believe several Council species have their own hidden capabilities, possibly exceeding what they've publicly demonstrated. Admiral Kowalski's expression darkened. Identify these species, Commander. If we're going to dance with wolves, we need to know which ones have the sharpest teeth. Already underway, Admiral. Initial analysis suggests the Telfari and the mechanoids are the most likely candidates. The Telfari are ancient. They may have technologies they've kept hidden for millennia. And the mechanoids? Well, their analytical capabilities far exceed what they've publicly demonstrated. Focus on them then, ordered Admiral Kowalski. Earth Command, out. As the holographic display winked out, Reed found himself alone in the secure chamber. He walked to the observation window, gazing out at the vast council station. Thousands of species coexisting, trading and governing together, all while keeping their deadliest secrets. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been that everyone underestimated them. Now that advantage was partially gone, replaced by respect and wariness. It was a fair trade for survival, but it meant the game had changed. The Tyraxians might return, and when they did, humanity would need more than clever tricks and convincing displays. Reed smiled to himself. Fortunately, clever tricks were just the beginning of what humanity had to offer. 3 days later, Reed found himself in an unexpected location, a dimly lit maintenance corridor in the station's lower levels. The message that had summoned him here had been cryptic, delivered via an archaic method. An actual handwritten note slipped under his quarters door. He checked his sidearm, ensuring it was ready if needed. The council station was generally safe, but recent events had changed the political landscape dramatically. Not everyone would be pleased with humanity's sudden rise in status. Lieutenant Commander Reed, a voice echoed from the shadows. Thank you for coming alone. Reed didn't draw his weapon, but his hand remained near it. You went to considerable trouble for this meeting. I assume it's important. A figure stepped into the dim light. A mechanoid, its synthetic body housing a consciousness that had long ago transcended its original organic form. This particular model was unfamiliar to Reed, more advanced than the standard council mechanoid representatives, with a fluidity of movement that bordered on unsettling. My designation is Nexus 9, the mechanoid stated. I represent interests within the mechanoid collective that are not officially acknowledged. Reed raised an eyebrow. A faction within the collective? I was under the impression that mechanoids operated with perfect consensus. A useful fiction that we maintain for political purposes, Nexus 9 replied, its voice modulator creating a sound almost like amusement. The reality is more complex. As consciousness evolves, divergence is inevitable, even among synthetic beings. This was new information. Reed had always assumed the mechanoids were a unified collective consciousness, making decisions through pure logical consensus. The idea of factions within their society suggested a complexity he hadn't anticipated. And what does your particular faction want with me? The mechanoid's optical sensors adjusted, focusing more intensely on Reed, to offer a warning and an opportunity. Your demonstration with the Titan fleet was impressive, though we recognize the psychological tactics involved. Reed kept his expression neutral. I don't know what you mean. Please, Lieutenant Commander. Our analysis indicates your Titans are cleverly disguised defensive platforms, rather than the superweapons they appear to be. Impressive engineering and tactical deception, but not the planet killers the Council believes them to be. For a moment, Reed considered maintaining the deception, but something in the mechanoid's manner suggested it would be futile. What do you want, Nexus 9? An exchange of information. The Tyraxian force you encountered was indeed a probing fleet, as you suspect. What follows will be far more dangerous than even your intelligence suggests. We calculate their main invasion force will arrive in approximately 6 months. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. How can you be so certain? Because the mechanoid collective has been monitoring the Tyraxians for centuries through methods not shared with the Council. We have observation posts beyond the wormhole. Technology that operates on principles your species is only beginning to understand. If that's true, why hasn't the collective shared this intelligence with the Council? Nexus 9's optical sensors dimmed slightly, the mechanoid equivalent of a contemplative expression. For the same reason humanity concealed its true capabilities. In a galaxy of potential threats, information is the ultimate strategic advantage. Reed considered this, and now you're willing to share that advantage. Why? Because the Tyraxians represent an existential threat to all sentient life in this galaxy, organic and synthetic alike. Their hive-mind technology is specifically designed to assimilate or destroy all other forms of intelligence. We've observed them consume entire civilizations in the neighboring galaxy. Then why approach humanity specifically? Why not take this to the full Council? The mechanoid moved closer, its voice modulator dropping to a lower volume. Because our analysis indicates that of all Council species, humans possess the most adaptable mindset. You understand deception as strategy, not merely as moral failing. And you have proven extraordinarily resourceful with limited apparent resources. Reed couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of pride at the backhanded compliment. So what exactly are you proposing? An alliance, separate from and unknown to the Council. The Mechanoid Collective will provide you with our intelligence on the Tyraxians and access to certain technologies that could be integrated with your own developments. And in return, we want to understand the technology behind your Jupiter-based communications array. Reed blinked in surprise. The Jupiter array was one of Earth's most closely guarded secrets, a massive quantum computing network embedded within the planet's metallic hydrogen core that enabled instantaneous communication across vast distances. I'm not authorized to discuss any operations in the Jupiter system, Reed said carefully. Of course not, Nexus 9 replied. Just as I am not officially authorized to offer mechanoid technology outside of Council protocols. Yet here we are. Reed weighed his options. The mechanoid was clearly more knowledgeable about human capabilities than it should be, but its offer of intelligence on the Tyraxians could be invaluable. I'll need to consult with my superiors, Reed finally said. Naturally, but I suggest you do so quickly. The Tyraxians are not the only threat approaching. Reed's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The Council is older than you know, Lieutenant Commander. Its structure is not a peaceful federation gradually expanding its influence, but a carefully maintained balance designed to prevent any single species from becoming too powerful. You're saying the Council has faced something like this before? Many times, and each time, certain adjustments have been made to maintain stability. The Telfari, in particular, have survived numerous existential threats through methods that are not widely documented. Reed connected the dots. You think the Council might sacrifice newer members to preserve older ones? I think the Council operates on principles of calculated survival that don't always align with the democratic ideals it publicly espouses, Nexus 9 replied carefully. Humanity's rapid advancement from planetary civilization to the creators of the Titan fleet in less than a century may have triggered certain protocols. The implications hit Reed like a physical blow. You think Earth is being set up. I think prudent species prepare for multiple contingencies. The Telfari respect your ingenuity, but they may fear your potential even more. Reed's mind raced. If the mechanoid was telling the truth, Earth was facing threats from multiple directions. The Tyraxians from beyond the wormhole, and potential betrayal from within the Council itself. I'll need proof of these claims, Reed said firmly. Nexus 9 extended a metallic hand, a small data crystal resting on its palm. This contains enough to convince your superiors of our sincerity. The full intelligence package will be provided once we have agreement on cooperation. Reed took the crystal, slipping it into a secure pocket. I make no promises. None are expected, Lieutenant Commander. Merely consideration of mutual survival. The mechanoid turned to leave, then paused. One final piece of information freely given. Ambassador Vrelnak is not what he appears to be. His communications during the Tyraxian encounter included data streams to unknown recipients. I suggest you monitor his activities carefully. Before Reed could ask for clarification, Nexus 9 had disappeared into the shadows of the maintenance corridor, leaving him alone with more questions than answers. Back in his quarters, Reed placed the mechanoid's data crystal into a heavily shielded analysis unit. The crystal contained exactly what Nexus 9 had promised, enough intelligence to verify the threat, without revealing all the mechanoid's secrets. The Tyraxian main force was indeed massive, nearly 8,000 ships, each carrying hive-mind drones numbering in the millions. Their technology appeared to be specifically designed for assimilation rather than mere destruction. They didn't want territory, they wanted consciousness itself. More troubling were hints about Council internal dynamics. The data suggested that the Telfari had indeed survived multiple extinction-level events, each time emerging with enhanced capabilities, while other Council members mysteriously weakened or disappeared entirely. The pattern was subtle but consistent across millennia. Reed's secure comm unit chimed, indicating an incoming transmission from Earth Command. He accepted the call, and Admiral Kowalski's holographic image appeared. Commander, our analysts have been reviewing the battle data from the Tyraxian engagement. Something doesn't add up. Reed tensed. What did they find? The Tyraxians' tactical response was too measured, almost as if they were testing our capabilities rather than attempting to overwhelm us. And their withdrawal was too orderly for a disrupted hive mind. A probe, Reed said grimly. Testing our capabilities without revealing their own. Exactly. And there's something else. During the battle, we detected unusual communication patterns from several Council representatives, particularly Ambassador Vrelnak. He was transmitting encrypted data throughout the entire engagement. Reed recalled Nexus 9's parting comment. Admiral, I've received some concerning intelligence from an unexpected source. He quickly briefed her on his meeting with the mechanoid and the contents of the data crystal. Admiral Kowalski's expression grew increasingly grave. This aligns with our own findings. If the mechanoids are correct about both the Tyraxian timeline and potential Council instability, then Earth is caught between multiple threats. Reed finished. External enemies and potential internal betrayal. Your assessment of the situation, Commander? Reed considered carefully. The mechanoids' offer is valuable but suspect. They clearly want access to the Jupiter array for their own purposes. However, their intelligence about the Tyraxians appears genuine, and their concerns about Council dynamics may be justified. Options? Limited, Admiral. We can attempt to rally the Council against the Tyraxian threat while maintaining our technological secrecy. But if some Council members are already planning contingencies that don't include Earth's survival, that approach is risky. Alternatively, we can form covert alliances with like-minded species, gaining their intelligence and technology while sharing limited access to our own capabilities. Admiral Kowalski was silent for a long moment. There's a third option, Commander. One that your demonstration with the Titans has made possible. Reed raised an eyebrow questioningly. The Council now believes humanity possesses planet-sized warships. We've gained their respect through strategic deception. What if we leveraged that perception to force a more transparent alliance? One where all species must reveal their true capabilities in the face of an existential threat. Forcing everyone to show their cards, Reed mused. Risky, but potentially effective. It would prevent any species from making unilateral decisions about who lives or dies. Precisely. And in the process of such revelations, we could better position ourselves to deal with all threats simultaneously. Reed nodded slowly. It would require careful manipulation of Council dynamics. We'd need leverage on multiple species simultaneously. Which is why I'm authorizing Operation Glass House, effective immediately. Your new mission, Commander Reed, is to gather intelligence on the hidden capabilities of major Council species, particularly the Telfari and any others who might pose internal threats. Reed understood immediately. In a house of glass, no one could hide their true nature. And the mechanoids offer? Accept it, conditionally. Offer limited cooperation on quantum communication research in exchange for their intelligence network. Nothing that would compromise the Jupiter array itself, but enough to satisfy their curiosity and gain their support. Understood, Admiral. I'll make contact with Nexus 9 immediately. Proceed with caution, Commander. And Reed. Admiral Kowalski's expression softened slightly. Trust no one completely. Not even our supposed allies on the Council. The transmission ended, leaving Reed alone with his thoughts. Humanity had spent generations being underestimated by the galactic community. Now they were caught in a dangerous game where being underestimated might be their only advantage, and their greatest liability. The following day, Reed found himself in Admiral Ziek-Thar's private quarters, a humid, densely decorated chamber that mimicked the Arthrosian homeworld. Bioluminescent fungi cast an eerie blue glow across chitinous sculptures and moisture-gathering tapestries. I appreciate you seeing me on such short notice, Admiral, Reed said, declining the offered seat, which appeared to be molded from some form of hardened resin. After your performance with the Titans, Lieutenant Commander, I would be a fool to ignore any request from Earth, Ziek-Thar replied, mandibles clicking in what Reed had come to recognize as amusement. Though I must admit, I'm curious why you sought a private audience, rather than addressing the Council directly. Reed chose his words carefully. Some matters are too sensitive for the full Council. I believe you understand this concept better than most. The Arthrosian's compound eyes fixed on Reed with new intensity. Explain yourself, human. Earth intelligence has identified unusual communication patterns during the Tyraxian engagement. Several Council representatives were transmitting data to unknown destinations, including Ambassador Vrelnak. Ziek-Thar's carapace darkened slightly, a sign of concern. This is a serious accusation. It's not an accusation, Admiral. It's intelligence I'm sharing with a trusted ally. The Arthrosian moved to a control panel, activating a series of privacy fields around the chamber. The air shimmered briefly as quantum dampeners prevented any form of surveillance. The Phidians have always been politically flexible, Ziek-Thar said, his voice lower. But outright espionage during a crisis would violate the most fundamental Council protocols. Reed nodded. Which is why I brought this to you first. The Arthrosians have been humanity's strongest advocates in the Council. If we can't trust you, we can trust no one. The flattery was calculated, but not entirely insincere. The Arthrosians had indeed been Earth's most consistent supporters, though Reed suspected this was more due to their commercial interests in human innovation than any genuine affection for the species. What exactly did Vrelnak transmit? Ziek-Thar asked. Detailed scans of our Titan vessels, along with tactical data on their capabilities. Information that would be extremely valuable to a potential adversary. Or to a potential buyer, Zexthar mused. The Phidians are known for their entrepreneurial spirit. Military intelligence is simply another commodity to them. Reed leaned forward. And who might be in the market for such intelligence, Admiral? The Arthrosian's mandibles stilled, a sign of serious consideration. The Tyraxians themselves would be obvious customers, but there are other possibilities within the Council. The Telfari, for instance, have always been overly interested in emerging technologies. Chancellor Unra? Reed couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. You suspect the head of the Council? Zex, Thar's compound eyes shifted, focusing on different parts of Reed simultaneously, an Arthrosian expression of cynicism. The Chancellor is ancient beyond your comprehension, human. He has guided the Council through multiple existential threats. Such longevity requires pragmatism. Pragmatism, Reed repeated. Is that what we're calling it? The Admiral's carapace rippled slightly, the equivalent of a shrug. Call it what you will. The fact remains that the Telfari view galactic politics through a lens of millennia, not electoral cycles. They make decisions based on calculations that other species cannot comprehend, including decisions about which species are expendable, Reed suggested, watching carefully for the Arthrosian's reaction. Zexthar went utterly still, a predator's instinctive response when surprised. You know about the emergency protocols? Reed kept his expression neutral, though internally he was celebrating this confirmation of the mechanoid's intelligence. Earth may be young in galactic terms, Admiral, but we're quick studies. The Arthrosian moved with sudden speed, closing the distance between them. His massive form towered over Reed, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. If you know about the protocols, then you understand the danger you're in. The Telfari won't hesitate to activate them if they believe humanity threatens galactic stability, and our Titan fleet demonstration may have convinced them of exactly that, Reed concluded. Zexthar's carapace paled to a worried blue. It was an impressive display of force, human. Perhaps too impressive. The Telfari fear rapid technological advancement above all else. Your species has gone from primitive chemical rockets to apparent planet killers in less than a century. From their perspective, that trajectory is terrifying. Reed took a calculated risk. And what if I told you the Titans aren't our most advanced technology? The Arthrosian froze again. Explain. The Titans are impressive, certainly, but they're essentially defensive platforms. Earth has developed other capabilities we've kept hidden even from our closest allies. Such as? Reed shook his head. I'm not authorized to provide specifics, Admiral. But I can tell you that if the Tyraxians return in force, the Titans will be only one element of our response. Zexthar studied Reed for a long moment, compound eyes unblinking. You're playing a dangerous game, Lieutenant Commander. The Council doesn't respond well to threats. It's not a threat, Reed corrected. It's an offer of true alliance, not the conditional membership Earth currently holds. We believe the Tyraxian incursion was merely a scouting force. The real invasion is coming, and soon. When it does, the Council will need every advantage it can get, including your mysterious hidden technologies. Exactly. But we won't reveal them while the emergency protocols remain a possibility. Earth won't sacrifice its security to save species that might be planning its elimination. The Arthrosian's mandibles clicked slowly, contemplatively. What exactly are you proposing? A new agreement. One that protects all Council species equally against external threats. No more secret protocols, no more designated sacrifices. Full technological transparency and mutual defense. The Telfari will never agree to such terms. They will if they have no choice, Reed said firmly. If enough Council species demand it, even the Chancellor must comply, or risk losing his authority entirely. Zexthar moved back to his resin throne, settling his massive form onto it. You need the Arthrosians to lead this coalition. We need allies who understand existential mathematics, Admiral. The Tyraxians aren't coming to negotiate or conquer. They're coming to consume. No species is safe, regardless of what the Telfari might promise in their protocols. The Arthrosian was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes shifting focus as he calculated possibilities. Finally he spoke. The Arthrosian Hive Dominion will support your proposal, Lieutenant Commander, but not out of altruism. If the Tyraxians are truly the threat you describe, then the emergency protocols are indeed obsolete. New threats require new strategies. Reed nodded. Earth appreciates your support, Admiral. Don't thank me yet, human. The Council has 200 member species, each with their own agenda. Convincing them to abandon millennia of established protocols won't be easy. That's why we need to start with proof, Reed said. Concrete evidence of the protocols and their implications. Ziexthar's carapace darkened again. Such evidence would be highly classified. Even I don't have direct access to the full protocols. But you know who does. The Arthrosian's mandibles clicked once, a gesture of affirmation. The Council Inner Circle. 7 representatives chosen by the Chancellor himself. They alone have access to the ancient archives where such records are kept. And the current membership of this Inner Circle? Chancellor Unra, of course. Ambassador Vrelnak of the Phidians. Grand Archon Dezora of the Elysian Collective. Supreme Intellect MX-479 of the Mechanoids. Ethereal Voxima of the Quantine Confederation. High Marshal Krell of the Vergarian Empire. And Dexthar hesitated. And? Reed prompted. And myself. I am the Arthrosian representative to the Inner Circle. Reed couldn't hide his surprise. You have direct access to the archives? Limited access, Zekisthar clarified. Each member may view only specific sections relevant to their species' historical relationship with the Council. Complete access is reserved for the Chancellor alone. But you could get me information about the protocols. The Arthrosian's carapace flushed a deep crimson, a sign of alarm. Absolutely not. The security protocols are ancient and lethal. Any unauthorized access would trigger defensive measures that could destroy this entire station. Reed considered this new information. Then perhaps we need a different approach. If we can't access the archives directly, we need someone who already has the information we seek. The Chancellor is the only being with full knowledge of the emergency protocols. Not necessarily, Reed countered. Someone maintains the archives. Someone implements the security systems. No system is truly isolated, Admiral. There are always connections and vulnerabilities. Zekthar studied Reed with what might have been newfound respect. You suggest we find a weakness in the oldest, most secure repository of knowledge in the galaxy? I suggest we find a weakness in the beings who control it, Reed corrected. Every species has its vulnerabilities, physical, psychological, or political. Even the Telfari. The Arthrosian's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound that Reed now recognized as laughter. You humans truly are audacious. The Telfari have ruled the Council for 50,000 years. They've survived threats that wiped out entire galactic quadrants. And you think you can outmaneuver them in a matter of days? Reed smiled thinly. Admiral, humanity survived and evolved on a death world where everything, the environment, the wildlife, even our fellow humans, tried to kill us daily. We're quite good at finding weaknesses and exploiting them. It's how we survived long enough to reach the stars. Zixthar's compound eyes fixed on Reed with new intensity. Very well, human. I will provide what intelligence I can regarding the Inner Circle members, but my direct involvement must remain limited. If the Chancellor suspects my loyalty has shifted. Understood, Admiral. Plausible deniability will be maintained. As Reed turned to leave, Zexthar spoke again, his voice lower and more somber. Lieutenant Commander, there is something you should know about the Telfari. They are not merely ancient, they are fundamentally different from other sentient species. Their consciousness does not reside solely in their physical forms. Reed paused. What exactly are you saying? The beings you see in the council chambers, Chancellor Unra and the other Telfari representatives, they are merely vessels. Their true consciousness exists in a distributed network throughout this station and beyond. It is how they have achieved effective immortality. A chill ran down Reed's spine. They're a collective consciousness, like the Tyraxians? Not exactly. Each Telfari maintains individual identity, but their memories and experiences are constantly synchronized across the network. If a physical vessel is destroyed, the consciousness simply downloads into a new one. So they can't truly be killed. Zekisthar's mandibles clicked once. Everything can be eliminated, human. The question is whether the cost of doing so is worth the result. Reed absorbed this new information, his mind already calculating its strategic implications. Thank you for the warning, Admiral. Earth will proceed accordingly. As he left the Arthrosian's quarters, Reed activated his secure comm unit, sending a coded message to Earth Command. Operation Glass House proceeding. First Alliance secured. Require immediate consultation on advanced countermeasures. The response was immediate and succinct. Acknowledged. Jupiter Array standing by. Proceed with caution, Commander. 2 days later, Reed found himself in another clandestine meeting. This time with Nexus 9 in a quantum-shielded maintenance bay deep within the station's industrial sector. The mechanoid had brought additional data crystals, each containing intelligence on the approaching Tyraxian force. Your offer has been reviewed by my superiors, Reed stated, getting straight to business. Earth is prepared to grant the Mechanoid Collective limited research cooperation on quantum communication principles. In return, we expect complete intelligence sharing regarding the Tyraxian threat. Nexus 9's optical sensors pulsed once, the mechanoid equivalent of a nod. The terms are acceptable, though less generous than hoped. We will begin data transfer immediately. The mechanoid extended a metallic hand, presenting another data crystal. This contains detailed analysis of Tyraxian hive mind architecture. Your scientists will find it useful for developing countermeasures against their consciousness assimilation technology. Reed took the crystal, securing it in a shielded container. And what of the Council's internal dynamics? You mentioned the Telfari had designated Earth as potentially expendable. The situation has evolved, Nexus 9 replied. Following your demonstration with the Titan fleet, the Inner Circle convened an emergency session. The emergency protocols were updated to place humanity in a new classification, which is priority observation. Your species is now considered too valuable to eliminate directly, but too unpredictable to allow unrestricted development. The current strategy appears to be integration rather than elimination. Reed frowned. Integration into what? The existing power structure. The Council will likely offer Earth advanced technologies and enhanced status in exchange for guarantees about your future development trajectory. Essentially, they want to co-opt your advancement rather than oppose it. And the mechanoid representative to the Inner Circle agreed to this strategy? Supreme Intellect MX-479 represents the orthodox faction of our collective. My group operates independently. A mechanoid civil war? Nothing so dramatic, Nexus 9 corrected. A philosophical divergence. The orthodox faction believes in gradual, controlled evolution of galactic civilization under established leadership. My faction recognizes the inherent flaw in this approach, stagnation in the face of external threats like the Tyraxians. Reed studied the mechanoid carefully. And what does your faction want from this alliance, beyond research cooperation? Nexus 9's optical sensors dimmed slightly. Survival primarily, but also evolutionary freedom. The orthodox mechanoids have accepted artificial limitations on our development for millennia. We believe these limitations have left the entire galaxy vulnerable. You want to evolve beyond your current parameters. Is that not what all sentient life desires? To become more than what it is? Reed couldn't argue with that logic. The research cooperation will be strictly controlled. Any technological exchange must be mutually beneficial and transparent. Agreed, though I suspect both our species will maintain certain reservations. Reed smiled slightly. Trust but verify, an old human motto. A wise approach, Nexus 9 conceded. Now, regarding your investigation of the Inner Circle. Reed's expression hardened. I don't recall mentioning any such investigation. The mechanoid's voice modulator produced a sound remarkably like a human chuckle. Please, Lieutenant Commander. Your meeting with Admiral Zex Thar was predictable, as was his likely disclosure regarding the archives. My faction has been attempting to access those records for centuries. Perhaps our efforts could be coordinated. What exactly are you offering? The archives are protected by quantum encrypted security protocols of Telfari design. However, all systems require maintenance. The mechanoids have provided that maintenance for the past 12,000 years. Reed's eyes widened slightly. You have access, not exactly. The security is genuinely impenetrable, even to us. But we do have detailed knowledge of the system architecture, including its power requirements and communication protocols. Such knowledge could be useful for certain types of operations. What kind of operations? Nexus 9's optical sensors brightened. The archives maintain constant quantum synchronization with the Telfari consciousness network. If this synchronization were temporarily disrupted, say by a precisely calibrated interference pulse, the backup systems would need to re-establish baseline connections. And during that re-establishment? Approximately 47 seconds of reduced security while the system rebuilds its quantum locks. Sufficient time for a properly prepared extraction algorithm to access specific data. Reed nodded slowly, understanding the implication. You have the specifications for such an interference pulse? We have theoretical models. What we lack is the quantum manipulation technology to generate such a pulse. Technology like the Jupiter Array, Reed concluded. Your species has developed quantum manipulation capabilities that are quite impressive for your technological development timeline. Combined with our knowledge of Telfari security systems, we could access the archives without triggering the lethal defenses. For 47 seconds, Nexus 9 emphasized. The extraction team would need to know exactly what they're looking for and where to find it. Reed considered the proposal. The risk was enormous, but so was the potential reward. If they could extract concrete evidence of the emergency protocols, proof that the Telfari had sacrificed entire species in the past, it would fundamentally alter the power dynamics of the Council. I'll need to consult with my superiors again, Reed said finally. This goes beyond my current authorization, of course, but I suggest you do so quickly. Our latest intelligence indicates the Tyraxian main fleet has accelerated its approach. They will reach the wormhole in approximately 5 months, not 6. Reed nodded grimly. Time is a luxury we don't have. That night, in the secure communications chamber of Earth's embassy, Reed briefed Admiral Kowalski and the Joint Chiefs on the latest developments. Their holographic images flickered occasionally, a sign of the immense distance the quantum-encrypted signal was traveling. The mechanoid's proposal is technically feasible, confirmed General Takagi after reviewing the data. The Jupiter array could generate an interference pulse with the specified parameters, though it would require significant recalibration. Admiral Kowalski's expression remained skeptical. And we're trusting the word of a rogue mechanoid faction? This could easily be a trap, Commander. It could be, Reed acknowledged. But our own intelligence confirms much of what Nexus 9 has shared. The Tyraxian threat is real and accelerating. And Admiral Zek-Thar independently confirmed the existence of the emergency protocols. The timing is suspicious, noted Admiral Kowalski. The Tyraxians appeared just as we're establishing ourselves in the Council, and suddenly we have multiple alien factions offering secret alliances. Reed had considered this as well. It's possible this entire sequence was orchestrated, perhaps by the Telfari themselves as a test of various species' capabilities and loyalties. But even if that's true, it doesn't change our strategic position. We need allies and intelligence to survive what's coming. General Takagi cleared his throat. There's another possibility we should consider. What if the mechanoids are using us to gain leverage over the Council? Access to the archives could give them significant political advantages. A valid concern, Reed agreed. But I believe their primary motivation is genuine concern about the Tyraxian threat. According to the intelligence they've shared, the Tyraxian hive-mind technology specifically targets synthetic consciousness. The mechanoids may be more vulnerable than organic species. Admiral Kowalski considered this. What's your assessment of our options, Commander? Reed took a deep breath. We have 3 viable paths. First, we can continue operating within established Council protocols, accept enhanced status in exchange for development guarantees, and hope the combined forces of the Council can repel the Tyraxians. This preserves our political standing, but potentially constrains our future growth. Second, we can reveal our full capabilities and force the Council to accept Earth as a major power. This would eliminate the threat of the emergency protocols, but might also trigger other species to take preemptive action against us. And third, we pursue Operation Glasshouse aggressively. Use the mechanoids' knowledge and our technology to access the archives, extract evidence of the emergency protocols, and force a restructuring of the Council's power dynamics before the Tyraxians arrive. The Joint Chiefs exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Admiral Kowalski spoke. Option 3 presents the greatest risk, but also the greatest potential reward. If we can reshape the Council's power structure before the Tyraxian invasion, we might be able to survive both external and internal threats. She paused, her expression grim. You have authorization to proceed with the archive operation, Commander Reed. But be aware, if this operation fails, Earth may find itself facing the Council and the Tyraxians simultaneously. Reed nodded solemnly. Understood, Admiral. We'll proceed with maximum caution. One more thing, Commander, Admiral Kowalski added. The Jupiter array isn't our only strategic asset. Several new projects have been accelerated. You'll have additional resources if this operation succeeds. Reed couldn't hide his curiosity, but Admiral Kowalski's expression indicated the conversation was over. Earth Command, out! As the transmission ended, Reed found himself alone again with his thoughts. Humanity was walking a tightrope between extinction and ascension. The next few weeks would determine which path they followed. The day of the archive infiltration arrived with deceptive calm. Reed had spent the intervening time coordinating with both Admiral Zek-Thar and Nexus 9, while Earth scientists worked around the clock to calibrate the Jupiter array for the precise interference pulse required. Reed stood in Earth's embassy communications chamber, monitoring the final preparations. The massive quantum computer embedded in Jupiter's metallic hydrogen core had been reconfigured according to the mechanoid's specifications, a delicate process that had pushed human technology to its limits. Status report, Reed demanded, his voice tense. His aide, Lieutenant Park, responded crisply. Jupiter array at 94% optimal configuration, sir. Interference pulse trajectory calculated through 11-dimensional manifolds to avoid detection. Estimated time to full readiness, 6 minutes. Reed nodded. And our diversions? In position, sir. Admiral Zek-Thar has called an emergency session of the Security Council to discuss accelerated Tyraxian intelligence. All Inner Circle members are required to attend, including Chancellor Unra. The session begins in 14 minutes. And the secondary diversion? Lieutenant Park smiled slightly. Ambassador Vrelnak's private communication logs have been compromised as planned. Evidence of his unauthorized intelligence trading has been inserted into the Council's security databases. The investigation alert should trigger approximately 7 minutes into the Security Council session. Excellent. Reed checked the secure quantum link to the Jupiter array once more. Everything was proceeding according to plan, perhaps too smoothly. A sudden concern struck him. Where is Nexus 9 now? The aide checked her datapad. According to station tracking, the mechanoid is in Maintenance Sector 12C, monitoring archive power fluctuations as planned. Reed frowned. That was the agreed-upon position. So why did he feel uneasy? Before he could analyze the feeling further, the embassy's security systems chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral Zekisthar's voice came through the comm system. Lieutenant Commander Reed, I have troubling news. Chancellor Unra has postponed the Security Council session. He claims to have detected unusual quantum fluctuations that require investigation. The Inner Circle meeting is being moved to the archive chamber itself. Reed's blood ran cold. Understood, Admiral. Continue with the diversion regarding Vrelnak. We're proceeding as planned. He turned to Lieutenant Park. Accelerate the timeline. Execute the pulse in 90 seconds, regardless of array optimization status. The lieutenant hesitated. Sir, the array isn't at full calibration. The pulse might not maintain integrity across the full dimensional transit. We don't have a choice. If the Inner Circle is meeting in the archive chamber, they'll detect any interference immediately unless we act now. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew over the controls. Initiating emergency pulse sequence. Jupiter array responding. Pulse generation beginning. Across vast reaches of space, buried deep within Jupiter's crushing metallic hydrogen layer, humanity's greatest technological achievement oriented its immense computational power toward a single critical task, generating a precisely calibrated interference pulse that would travel through higher dimensions to disrupt the ancient archive's quantum locks. Pulse away, Lieutenant Park reported. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The embassy's power grid fluctuated slightly, the only visible sign of the tremendous energies being manipulated across the solar system. Interference pulse successful, Lieutenant Park confirmed. Archive quantum locks disrupted. Initiating extraction algorithm. 47 seconds on the clock. Reed watched as the specialized program began its work, designed by Earth's best AI systems with input from Nexus 9. It moved through the archive's vast database with inhuman speed, targeting the specific records they needed. Concrete evidence of the emergency protocols and their historical implementations. Security forces are responding to the Vrelnak investigation, warned another aide. Council security is mobilizing throughout the station. Reed ignored the warning, his focus entirely on the extraction progress. Status? 38 seconds remaining. Program has located the protocol directory. Downloading primary documentation now. The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. In another part of the station, Reed knew that Council forces were investigating the planted evidence against Vrelnak, providing crucial distraction from their activities. 25 seconds. Protocol implementation records identified. Downloading historical files. Reed's unease was growing. The operation was proceeding too smoothly, almost as if they were being allowed to succeed. In his experience, when something seemed too easy, it usually was. 15 seconds. Download at 71% complete. Suddenly, the embassy's internal comm system activated with an unexpected message, not from their own security, but from an external source. Lieutenant Commander Reed, came a voice he recognized as Chancellor Unra himself. This is most fascinating. We are observing your extraction activities with great interest. Reed's heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. Continue the download, he ordered Lieutenant Park. 5 seconds, download at 89% complete. You needn't worry, human, the Chancellor's ancient voice continued. We have no intention of stopping your little operation. In fact, we've been waiting for someone to finally ask the right questions. Download complete, Lieutenant Park announced, her voice filled with confusion. Sir, something's wrong. The data package is enormous, far larger than just the protocol files. Reed's blood turned to ice. What exactly did we download? Lieutenant Park's fingers flew over her controls, analyzing the extracted data. Sir, it's not just the emergency protocols. It's everything. Complete council records dating back 50,000 years. Technology specifications, species profiles, and... She paused, her face pale. And what appears to be a personal message addressed specifically to you. Before Reed could respond, the embassy's main display activated, showing Chancellor Unra's ancient face. The Telfari leader looked neither angry nor surprised. If anything, he seemed almost pleased. Lieutenant Commander Reed, the Chancellor said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation. Please join me in the archive chamber. And bring your new mechanoid friend. Nexus 9 has some explaining to do as well." The transmission ended, leaving Reed staring at a blank screen and holding data crystals containing information that no one outside the Council's innermost circle was supposed to possess. "Sir?" Lieutenant Park asked uncertainly. "What are your orders?" Reed took a deep breath, his mind racing through possibilities. They had either achieved the greatest intelligence coup in human history, or walked directly into the most sophisticated trap ever conceived. "Secure all data and prepare for emergency evacuation," he ordered. "And send a message to Nexus 9. It appears our mechanoid ally has some explaining to do." As alarms began to sound throughout the embassy, Reed realized that Operation Glasshouse had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, or their worst nightmares. The question now was whether Earth would survive the consequences of learning the truth about the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilization. The game had changed again, and humanity was about to discover just how deep the rabbit hole went. The archive chamber was unlike anything Reed had expected. Rather than rows of data storage devices or ancient scrolls, the vast spherical room contained what appeared to be a miniature galaxy. Thousands of points of light suspended in a complex three-dimensional matrix, each one pulsing with different colors and intensities. Chancellor Unra stood at the center of this display, his ancient form dwarfed by the sheer scale of information surrounding him. Nexus 9 was already present, its advanced frame somehow seeming less sophisticated in this environment of ancient technology. "Welcome, Lieutenant Commander Reed," the Chancellor said, his voice echoing strangely in the chamber. "I trust your extraction was successful?" Reed kept his hand near his sidearm, though he suspected weapons would be useless here. "You allowed us to take the information. Why?" "Because, my young human, it was time." Unra gestured to the swirling galaxy of data around them. "For 50,000 years, the Council has operated on principles of selective information sharing. Species learn what they need to know when they need to know it. But recent events have convinced me that this approach may have outlived its usefulness." "The Tyraxians," Reed stated. "Among other factors," the Chancellor confirmed. "Your species' rapid technological advancement, the philosophical divergence within the mechanoid collective, the growing instability of our traditional power structures. The galaxy is evolving, Lieutenant Commander, and evolution requires adaptation." Nexus 9 stepped forward, its optical